friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about some plants that I think you should be buying big because they grow incredibly slowly. So if you want a big version of this plant, you might want to buy it large, as well as some of the opposite, some fast growing plants that you can definitely buy small and save yourself some money up front because they will grow so quickly that you'll have a big plant in no time. But before I get into it, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate it. Let's get on into it and we can look at some plants. The first one I want to talk about is Hoyas. And while you can get some Hoyas that grow on the faster side, a lot of Hoyas, especially the ones that you're going to get that are a little bit more uncommon, tend to be a little bit more on the slower side. And so I would kind of recommend that if you wanted a big, beautiful, gigantic, flowy Hoya, that you buy it big. And I know that's difficult because ones like this is the Hoya compacta variegata. Ones like this, they're going to cost you a pretty penny to grow big. But I've had this, I think, for a couple years now, and it's just this size. It has not really been growing that much. I think it grows a little bit, but because of the form of this plant, it kind of crinkles in on itself and forms like a rope. And so it takes a long time to see actual visual representation of the growth it is having. I have found some Hoyas propagate faster than others, but in general, if you're buying a Hoya as a cutting, because maybe they're more uncommon and you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on it, they take a while to actually do anything. Like, I have several here. I mean, this one, I got this past summer. This is a Hoya Thomsonii, and it has done nothing. It is rooted in here, but there is no new growth on it, and I don't expect there to be anytime soon, just because I know that they are fairly slow growers. So if you want a Hoya to be big and beautiful from the outset, to like be a piece in your home that is large, you might want to consider buying them a bit bigger because it takes a long time for them to get to this point. And I will say that there are some Hoyas I have in my collection that do grow faster, and once they are larger, they tend to grow a lot faster. But small ones like this, or if you're growing them from cuttings, they take ages to get going. And so I definitely recommend buying them big if you can. One that you can definitely buy small, I know I've been speaking about this one a lot lately, but I wholeheartedly believe that you can get yourself an Anthurium Pallidiflorum, like when it's quite small, as a baby plant, and it can grow quite quickly. So I have two plants in this pot. So obviously I've got quite a large one at the front, but at the back here, I have a much smaller plant that I got for my birthday last year in June time, and it wasn't huge, it wasn't tiny, it wasn't a baby plant, but it also was not gigantic. But since then, it has put out this massive leaf, and that is easily the same as the big one at the front. It has doubled in size between these leaves and this one down here. And I have found that they grow so quickly and easily that I'm really not ever worried about this one. And you can tell it's not getting incredible amounts of light, but it is still growing very quickly. And I actually have some new growth coming in there as well at the minute, and I know this one is going to be huge before I know it. It's already expanding at an incredible rate, so I am just looking forward to watching it happen and knowing that you don't need to get them very big in order for them to grow into big plants down the line. I got my Monstera Constellation plant in 2020, so 4 years ago now, and I got it as a single leaf cutting. And One, I had so many issues with root rot and trying to save it. I think I have a whole video on being able to save this one. And in the 4 years that I have had it, it has given me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves, which is incredibly slow. So I know that Thai constellations are becoming cheaper and cheaper, and it is quite tempting to get yourself a small one or a propagation of one even, in hopes that you're going to be able to have like a big, beautiful, like massive Thai constellation in maybe a year or 2, because monsteras tend to grow quite quickly. But I find this is the exception to that rule. And I don't think I'm alone in saying this. I've heard of a lot of other people having issues with their Thai cons in that they grow slowly and that they root rot and stuff. And I kind of say, if you want a big one, buy a big one. Like, I really want a big one. I'm really tempted now to go buy myself a big one and maybe like join this into the bottom of it, because I want to have a really big, beautiful Thai constellation. But I understand that they are also really expensive, like hundreds and hundreds of pounds or dollars, and I can't particularly justify that expense. And so that's why I haven't gotten myself a big one yet. But maybe down the line in the future, when I do feel like I have that sort of money to spend on something, or if someone wants to like give me a really big one or do like a sponsorship or something, we can work something out. But yeah, it is just such a slow grower. And I mean, it is growing right now. I just noticed this the other day, that it is putting out a bit of new growth there, which is super duper exciting. I can't wait to see how this leaf is, because the last leaf on this one is by far the best with actual fenestration. But if I can get it to grow even this size with some similar fenestrations, that would be my ideal. Also, I have heard that Thai constellations are crawlers rather than climbers. And I could be wrong in that. Definitely let me know if you do know whether or not they're crawlers or climbers. But even from just how mine is growing, given I've not given it support, so I haven't given it something to climb, it does look like it is keen to crawl rather than climb. So I don't know, we will see. But I would definitely buy one big if I possibly could. I know this one isn't particularly uncommon, but I cannot rave enough about the Raphidophora Tetrasperma and how quickly it grows. I got this plant as very small. It was like down here on the pot. It didn't need a moss pole or anything. I very promptly put it on a moss pole because I knew how quickly it could grow, and it easily grew over a meter in the span of a year. And since then I've had to extend the moss pole several times, and I have also been chopping the tops off. So I know this could probably be like 3 times as long, but because I've been pruning it at the top, it's had to start regrowing several times over. And I have finally just accepted that it is going to be a very tall, long thing, and I'm trying to train it to grow along the ceiling. It's not quite at the point where it's reached the ceiling, but it will be very soon, and I'm excited for that to be the case. I just can't imagine anyone needing to buy this one in a big plant, because I barely care for this one. I just set and forget, and it has been fantastic. But yeah, I am so fond of this one. I just can't wait until I can get it to grow on the ceiling and look really extra nice. Then we have the Monstera Dubia. And part of me goes both ways with this one, because once it is established, it grows very quickly. Like you can see, this one is grown incredibly off the top of the pole, growing really well. But to get it to that point is so freaking difficult. So I got my Monstera Dubia, oh my goodness, you can see at the bottom even. I got a Monstera Dubia as a cutting, probably like 3 years ago. And one, I'm pretty sure it lived in my prop box for literal years doing nothing. It did not grow any new growth at all. Which was really freaking annoying, because like I got it as a cutting to kind of save on the cost of actually getting myself a plant of it. But it didn't do anything. Eventually it did root, thank goodness, and I was able to take it out of the cabinet and pot it up. It's actually growing loads of roots at the bottom at the minute, but I was able to pot it up. And when I did, it just grew like this really long viney thing. Even this was before it was on the pole. I have trailed it along the pole like this in order to maximize the space I have with it. In my collection, I've only been able to grow Monstera Dubias on moss poles. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just not humid enough or what, but for me, moss poles have been the only way I've been able to grow them. But it took so long to get it to this point. Whereas this one, I got as a proper plant in last year actually, and I have been able to take this one off of the bottom. So I had quite a long one on a plank. I added a moss pole extension to the top, and from there I was able to chop and extend. So I took the entire bottom off this plant, and now it is nearly at the top of this moss pole as well. But it took like a year to grow twice as much distance as the one I propagated, which took 3+ years to grow. So I know it is very tempting to get plants like this one, the Monstera Dubia, in a cutting form to save on the cost, but since the cost has gone down quite significantly actually in the time that it's taken me to propagate that other one, I could have been able to buy one of these a few times over, and it probably, I could have just waited. So I would just buy one on a plank already. You don't need to buy one like huge. You can get them on small planks and that will do, but I definitely would not suggest buying one from propagation because no, it just does not work, and they are so slow to propagate. Another one that you can totally buy small and get it to grow big quite quickly is an Acecanathus, aka a lipstick plant. This one specifically is the Black Pagoda one, and I grew this one from a single cutting. I think it maybe had 2 or 3 leaves on it, and I just popped it in water, and once it rooted, it has gone into soil, and I literally have never ever taken propagations of it since. And it is so like thick and bushy in there, and I'm sure I could have made it even thicker and bushier had I propagated it, but I am just letting it run its course, and it is growing amazingly. I think I got this one maybe 2 years back, and so maybe this doesn't look like incredibly impressive in growth, but I think it has been. I don't see the need to buy a big one of these, because maybe if I started out with like 4 or 5 cuttings that I could totally have easily swapped for, or bought like a tiny plant that was already established, it could have grown so much bigger, so much faster. I currently have this one in a southwest facing window, like right up against the window. You can see, I think it is a little bit sun bleached. It's a bit more yellow than it could possibly be if it were somewhere in a darker spot, but these do not mind the direct sun. In fact, they quite like it. And I love this one in particular because of the backs of the leaves. They're these beautiful reddy purple marble pattern, and every single one has it, and it is just incredible. So that's another reason why I quite like this one, because if I have it facing the window, I get to enjoy the purple backs of the leaves. And also this one, I don't think I've ever repotted it. It is just in like a tiny little ditty pot in here, and I sometimes forget to water it for quite a long time, and it is just cracking along, growing quite big, quite long in the time I've had it. And so I would probably never buy one of these big unless you wanted it to be huge immediately. But if you have like a growing season to get it big, I could easily see this one doubling, tripling this summer, and I'm excited to see if it actually happens. So yeah, get one of these small. I also highly recommend that if you want to have big Alocasias, that you kind of buy them big, unless you have a lot of patience and a lot of time, or maybe you are more experienced in the hobby and you feel like you can grow them from corms or baby plants. But if you are newer to this hobby and you don't have tons of experience and you still want to get some cool Alocasias, I kind of recommend buying them bigger because they will be more robust. They're going to be sturdier. They're not going to have as many issues probably as ones that that you buy as corms or babies. One, if you're buying corms, there's no guarantee that it'll actually sprout, and two, it is quite a weak plant right at the beginning, and it takes quite a long time for me, at least. Maybe some people can grow their alocasia corms huge really quickly, but I have not found that to be the case in my collection, and I've been growing alocasias for 5 years as well. So I really wouldn't recommend buying baby plants unless you definitely know what you're doing. I know it's difficult because like there's a lot of new alocasias that are becoming really popular these days, especially ones that are variegated. Like I've got my variegated Fryedeck here that I'm growing from a corm, I know, but I have had a lot of practice growing alocasias from corms, and I feel like I rate my chances with it, but I totally understand that it's not necessarily doable for everyone, and especially if you are newer into this hobby, maybe get yourself a big one instead and learn how to take care of your alocasias from there rather than going straight in with a small one and hoping that you're able to grow it well. Another more uncommon one that I totally think you can buy on the smaller side even as a baby plant is the Philodendron Glorious. This crazy plant right here. Basically, this one, I got it as, I'd say, a medium-sized plant when the leaves were about this big down here, and to me that felt like a huge plant. I don't think I realized quite how big and quickly this one can grow, and I have just been astonished by it. So I'm pretty sure I got this one in February of 2022, and like I said, it wasn't huge, but it also wasn't tiny. And since then, I have basically just had it on a moss pole, and it has grown incredibly. I can't even fit this in the frame because it is so big, and it has sized up so fast. I have taken several cuttings off of it. That's why it's so thick around the bottom, because I've been able to chop and prop it several times over, and I'm going to have to do that again fairly soon because it has reached the top of the moss pole once again. And so if you can get yourself a Glorious as a baby, 1000% recommend, because they will just go crazy. I did have it in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, my Millsbow, for the first little while of its life, but it soon outgrew that. Very quickly actually outgrew that, and I wasn't able to keep it in there. And so since then it has just been in average home humidity, average home light, and has been absolutely fine with that and still growing incredibly. Another one that I think you should buy big if you want to have a big one is any form of Scindapsus. So you can see I have a massive Scindapsus exotica hanging out over the top of my mirror. And I absolutely love this plant, but it has taken so long for it to grow to this size. And now, I mean, it's meters and meters and meters long, but I got this plant, I think maybe 2019, 2020, quite a long time ago, and it has taken a really long time to get to this point, and there have been many a runner along the way where it's not grown any leaves in the space. And so I just find that Scindapsus take a long time to do anything. If you want to propagate them, they take a really long time to root and to grow new growth. And once they have rooted, they continue growing quite slowly. So, oh, actually, I could even show this one. Obviously, this one isn't the prettiest one in the world, but this was my first ever plant. And yes, I have taken cuttings from it several times over, but this is a Scindapsus argyraeus, the like normal satin pothos, and I'm sure I could have given it better care and had it grow bigger faster, maybe given it more light or something. But if this is the result of like over 5 years of growing, that tells you that it's a small plant. So if you do want to get a big, beautiful, bushy Scindapsus argyraeus or Scindapsus in general, especially some of the like more rare, uncommon ones, you should probably buy yourself a big one if that is the sort of goal for it. I would not recommend getting one small and trying to grow it big, because it will take a very, very long time. So much so that I have actually joined almost all of my uncommon Scindapsus together into a single pot because I had so many small ones around. And so I kind of made a big mixed pot in order to have it be a bit more big, bushy plant than a bunch of small ones. So it takes time. They grow incredibly slowly. So if you want a big one, buy a big one. Another one that you can definitely get yourself small is any sort of cane begonia. So this one here is a begonia white ice, and I have found that it grows incredibly, specifically in semi-hydro substrate with a water reservoir in the bottom, because I found that these like quite a lot of moisture, and I really struggled with cane begonia for quite a while before I figured out what they like. And now that I know and understand, this one has just grown like crazy. So I got this one as a single leaf cutting as well, I think 2 years back, and I have taken so many cuttings for friends. Pretty much anytime I go to a swap or I do a swap with someone, I like to share this one with them because that's how I got it in a swap, and I just like to share the love. And also cane begonias, whenever you chop them, they branch out even more. So if you want to get a very, very bushy cane begonia, all you have to do is keep chopping the tops off and it will continue to branch out and get bushier and bushier, and it just makes for such an easy, fast growing plant. That being said, I do have mine in my greenhouse cabinet, which is quite high humidity. This one, I think right now it's like over 60% almost all the time, so higher humidity does help with these, but you don't necessarily need it. And I think I could, at this point, now that this plant is quite established, pull it out of the cabinet and put it into my home, which is also fairly high humidity on its own, like 50 to 60% almost all the time, and just essentially encourage this one to keep growing bigger and stronger. I do have it staked as well in there to hold it up, but I genuinely think I'm going to chop it again, not too low, but enough for it to branch out again and hopefully continue to bush it out and grow a proper bushy cane begonia. I just love it so much. So that is it. Those are my recommendations for plants that you should be buying already big, or you can get them from a small one and grow them big quite quickly. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any other plants that you find grow really, really quickly or slowly and you suggest buying them big or small or whatever, put them down below in the comments. I can definitely make a part 2 for this sort of video if you want to know more of these, because it's quite fun. I like sharing my experience, and some plants just grow really, really well, and some just take a long freaking time. So yeah, that is it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Before I go though, I want to say a huge thank you to the newest member of my Good Growing fam over on Patreon, Vicky. Thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it. If anyone else is interested in joining my Patreon, it is £3 or about $4.50 a month, or about €4, and you get everything for that price, which is bonus content, live chats, polls, access to our Discord server, a fun planty community, and just like kind of more access to me as well. I make sure I prioritize messages from my patrons over like any random person out there. So it's there if you want it, but absolutely no pressure if that is not your thing. That's totally cool as well. So yeah, but if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you have an amazing day. Keep growing. Bye!